Good morning, beautiful souls. Happy Friday. Well, it's Friday Ascension update. As you might notice, I'm not in my usual woodland setting, but I am somewhere equally beautiful. I am in Hamburg, getting ready for the weekend's heart-centered extravaganza with myself and Miriam back. And for those of you that are coming along, see you for a little bit tonight, and then we've got the full day Saturday and the full day Sunday. Really looking forward to it, and it's truly gorgeous to be back here again. Love this part of the world, and got a few things I want to kind of talk about this morning. It's usually what I would do would be to kind of stagger out into the woods and put my hands upon the tree, my tree, Merlin's tree, and decide what's coming through. But I noticed something so incredibly distinct yesterday that I've got to touch on it, got to talk about it, got to have a kind of like a little bit of a dive into the energies at the moment. Wherever you are in the world, you will be noticing a particularly distinctive energy around you, moving through the people who you might be sharing a house with, you might be sharing a family, it might be your partner, it might be your workspace, it could be the supermarket or the bank or anywhere else like this. Every country on this beautiful planet has a very distinctive vibration. What I'm really noticing at the moment, and this might sound just like simply like common sense more than anything else, is that some places feel like they are experiencing a huge amount of intensity, whereas other places feel considerably calmer. And I noticed yesterday as I scrambled through Heathrow Airport, which is always fun, as if any of you are kind of the more seasoned travellers leaving the UK airports are usually just a bit of a shindig, aren't they? But as soon as I got off the ground and flew the relatively short flight from London to Hamburg, and we landed, I noticed there was a very, very different energy here. The UK at the moment feels like a powder keg. That's the only way to explain it. A little bit like maybe if you pull the pin on a hand grenade, but you don't let the hand grenade go. You know, you've got that interim period of like, you know, well, if my hand comes off this, it's going to explode. And I noticed that my nervous system completely relaxed. It became calmer. I mean, I love Germany anyway, but I could feel the distinctive difference in the frequency, in the vibration, the way people are holding on to things, the internal and the external and the etheric struggle that's going on. And having spoken to Miriam, who I'm co-presenting with this weekend, she said, well, it's not, you know, like from a perspective of those living in Germany, that's not necessarily the case. There's an incredible amount of pressure politically, physically, spiritually, economically. Everything is pressurized, but something felt so different about leaving the United Kingdom and coming here. And so it's all about the case of perspective, what is going on collectively. So what is happening collectively? What's happening collectively that's different in the United Kingdom to, say, somewhere like Germany or Sweden, anywhere else? And it's reading into the energy, the process that we're moving through at the moment. It just proves that it is dependent on geographical location, where you are in the world, what energies you are privy to, what the puppeteers in the background happen to be doing, what they are implementing, and whether or not people in general have a grip on what we would say maybe a higher reality. there's an awful lot of people stuffed into a very small space in the United Kingdom, and it really does feel like a firecracker that's going to go off. And I live there on a permanent basis. The south of England was where I was born, nearly 53 years ago now, getting on now, and I've got no intention of leaving it. That's where I'm established. That's where we are all very happy, and there are some incredibly vibrant and very intensely spiritual places close to where I live. If you look at on a geographical level, you keep using that word geographical today, it's all along the south coast, I used to ask myself the question, why are there so many light workers all located along the south coast? Why is there seemingly a concentration, and I'm talking from the westernmost tip of Cornwall all the way across the south coast to the eastern part of England or southern England? There seems to be almost like a wall or a line or selective communities of very dedicated and intensely focused lightworks. I mean, the rest of England is also incredibly powerful, with huge pockets of people beginning to step up and beginning to work and beginning to operate at higher frequency. And the obvious answer came through that it's because of the location of the heart centre of planet Earth, which happens to be Glastonbury. Obviously, it's not just Glastonbury, it's all of the ley system that surrounds it in the intertwining lines that travel all the way up the country. But on a particular level, the south of England is a gathering point. You have places also like the New Forest, which is almost like the Hampshire version of Glastonbury, beginning to rise up with a very proactive and very dedicated spiritual community living there. So with all of this work that's going on, with all of these very kind of highly focused and intensely dedicated light workers, why does it still feel like it's going to go off? And again, it brings me back to the point of focus of what are we tuned into? What's our collective level of expectation? If we're kind of going about our daily business, we're living our lives with a spiritual intention running through the entire of it. But what's playing in the background? Okay, what has been seeded into the collective? What's playing out in the background? What is psychologically turning the screws, so to speak, to bring this incredible kind of, it's almost like you can see the pan beginning to boil. If you forget like a boiling pot on the stove, eventually it will boil over. I can see the foam starting to rise now. So I'm very interested in what has been seeded collectively into the conscious and the subconscious of everybody sharing the space. And understandably, I know from whatever country that you will be listening in, that you will be experiencing an intensity of the change, but on a level that is being completely presented to you from where you live, from the circumstances that you find yourself in, whatever everybody is collectively tuning into. So looking at powder keg situations, I don't feel that the energy of our current trajectory, our timeline, is about powder kegs. It's not about explosions, it's not about collapse. We had this situation which really brought my attention to where we are at the moment, where the electricity went off in Spain and Portugal. Didn't go off for long, did it? But the effects of which made it into the newspapers worldwide. Blackout, blackout. What are we going to do? Couldn't use our phones. Trams stopped in the middle of the street. People trapped in elevators. All the rest of it. And it created an incredible amount of fear. Created a overwhelming sense of uncertainty, and also, I might add, quite a collective expression of told you so / smugness amongst the more prepared of our community, who were basically like, yeah, it was a bit weird not having my phone for 24 hours, but hey, you know, we're ready, we're off grid sort of thing. So there's this very much like this division of people who are just like, oh my God, what will we do if that happens on a bigger level? And those that are just saying, hey, I told you so. So I want to look a little bit about how we can maybe prepare ourselves emotionally for the shifts and change, because I feel very deeply that this powder keg within many of us, myself included, I live there at the end of the day. I'm not exempt or immune to the physicalities, the emotions, the frequencies and the vibration any more than anybody else living there is. Like I'm a human being with a human nervous system. I might know and be tuned into all of these different energies, but at the end of the day, I am still a boots on the ground human being living a human life through this incredible set of changes. And I think fear of change, it's the fear of change that is really rattling people's cages at the moment. You might be listening to me and thinking, actually, yeah, that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about what's going to happen in the future. I'm worried about what will happen if the lights go out. How will I phone so-and-so? How will I use my card at the shop? How will I do whatever I need to do? How will I communicate with my group on social media? I don't necessarily believe at any point that we are going to experience a demolition or a structured or unstructured collapse of our civilization, but I do believe that we're being fear-seeded into believing that that's going to happen on a nervous system level, and we need to be careful of that. Okay, so again, it's one of these very clever little pieces or threads of information that gets sewn into our everyday life, our everyday consciousness. Some people in different locations will cope with it better than others, simply because of the way that the countries are set up and the way that people live their lives. In the UK, like many places, we are incredibly dependent on the matrix, the system, you know, the system that we all want to completely unplug ourselves from and not be further part of, but we are. That's the reality of where we are at the moment. So I believe it's imperative more than anything else to begin looking at our dependency on this system. How would we or do we function if something occurs, like the lights go out for 24 hours, the phones go down, the internet, the electricity? Are we in a position to just go, do you know what, I light some candles, got a bit of food stocked up, I'm cool? Because it's only taken 2 decades, or 2 generations even, to almost breed out the ability for people to be able to feed themselves, to be able to provide for themselves. If you look back to, say, the 1980s, there were allotments and places to grow and provide food for ourselves absolutely everywhere. You go further back into the 70s and the 60s and the 50s, and like the way that your grandparents or your great-great-grandparents would have operated their lives, they were never fully dependent on the system that we are dependent on. So we have an innate fear at this moment in time of being unplugged and not being able to manage ourselves, not being able to cope. And again, this then moves into the beauty of having a system or a community around us to provide that support, that coming together. If you look at also how disconnected from one another we've also become, like the all in our own little boxes, in our own little worlds, in our own little field of stress, running from A to B to C to D, creating, you know, like managing our everyday lives, paying the bills, putting a roof over our heads, making sure there's food on the table. And all of the time this has got more and more compressed, more intense, more energized. And as it does so, the hamster will become smaller and we become furtherly more separated from one another. So I'm finding this period of time incredibly interesting. Particularly the United Kingdom and probably maybe other countries that are dotted around are really beginning to wonder what on earth is going on, what's going to happen. I have never felt that there's going to be a collapse. I've never felt that there's going to be a point where everything goes out and we're like back to basics, like, you know, retreat to the caves, you know, like get the stock of berries out. That's not where we are. But the one thing that is incredibly important, that we collectively do not dive into that survival mode, that fear mode, because we're being seeded to do it. We're being seeded to believe that we're going to need to be prepared in that way. I don't think there's any harm in being a prepper or being prepared in any way, shape or form, to have some form of backup. But to spend our entire lives triggered into a state where we believe that's going to occur, or waiting for the hammer to fall. I mean, if you look politically at circumstances in the United Kingdom, it's hardly surprising. The whole thing is one gigantic wind up. Everyone's being wound up. We're being wound up here, being wound up in Germany, being wound up in Australia, in the United States. And just at this particular moment in time, and I can hear Serapis Bay in the background kind of like, yeah, let's get this information out there. People are biting, we're biting. Our nervous systems are biting, our minds are biting, our fields of energy are being affected by this fear of change. Change is nothing to fear, okay? We agreed to this. We agreed to very much become part of this new golden era, this new golden age. Of course, there is going to be alterations to how things function, to how things operate. If you look at a fifth dimensional golden future, in whatever category or form that you want to, the rules of this higher frequency society or civilization are very simple. If it functions at a 3D frequency and it is immovable, it cannot change, it cannot alter, it cannot be shifted, then it does not belong in the new structure. It has to be broken down, or it has to be recreated at a level where it can be transformed. It can be. I was given a term back in 2014 which I found very interesting at that particular time. It's called Christ consciousness terraforming, okay? And that's beginning to come through again at the moment, Christ consciousness terraforming. And if you think about what terraforming is, it means transforming a planet, a piece of land, in any way to suit the energies, the frequencies and the needs of the people that are living upon it. And our entire planet at this moment is being terraformed to hold this higher light, this higher consciousness, this higher frequency. And that fear, that vibration, the imminent change that everybody can feel, in some places more than others, is really beginning to trigger the survival mechanisms, the fear buttons, and of course it's being stoked so much by those that like to wind up, you know, like motion, stirring the pot, you know, get everybody in that state. So this period of time, on the other side of the Fires of Beltane, we are currently at this moment in time tuning into the frequency and the vibration of the gathering of the masters that's occurred. You might have heard me mentioning that every 100 years there's a huge gathering of ascended masters, gods, goddesses, you know, anybody and everybody who's interested in bringing forwards the evolution of this planet has been meeting there every 100 Earth years since the beginning of physicality on this world. But this year's different because there is going to be so many people or souls or beings of light who are gathering there in etheric, who have not been to Earth before. So I'm going to be very interested in what they bring through. At the moment, the information hasn't become available about what they're achieving, what they're planning, what they're bringing through. The Intergalactic Council are always fairly tight-lipped about it, but whatever it will be, it will be meaning change. So I'm going to be looking at this also with my Wags Wednesday next week. It will be the first of the live streams of the month, of this beautiful new month of May. I'll be looking at how we manage the nervous system, how we can work with the nervous system, how we can soothe the nervous system when we can feel that change is coming, and actually begin to use this to our advantage rather than being in a triggered state of fear permanently, because I can feel it very, very prominently at the moment. So between now and then, just bring forth as much of the violet flame as you feel is necessary. Be aware of what your triggers are. If you are feeling this intensity, this irritation, this, oh my God, what's happening next coming through, look at where that's come from. Look at why it's triggering you. Where is maybe the inner wounding or the past life connection that has brought this to your attention? Or maybe it's just the fact that you don't know where all of this is going and you have to trust. Okay, so for now, that's it from me. I will be back next week, sending you all so much love from my heart to yours. Talk to you soon. Bye.